Welcome back, everybody. Well, in the last video, I started my dust system and got it in place. I've got it roughed in over here. I've still yet got to tie it in. But today, I'm going to try to mount that miter saw in that hole. Now, I did buy a new miter saw for this because I've got just a standard countertop width to work with. And this is a 12-inch sliding miter saw, so in order to get it to fit on that countertop, I had to go with this style of saw versus I've had Dewalt saws for years, but their 12-inch sliding saw has the arms, so I'd have been way out here with my saw. So I went with that for that reason. That's a pretty neat little mechanism, and when I'm not using it, all I've got to do is swing it around. Clear pathway. Now, I'm not going to get real fancy with it. Basically, all I will do is measure from the top of my table down to the surface. I was able to find a smaller piece of butcher block top that matches the tops that I have in here. I have got a piece of popper I'll rip down from my sides to hold me up. I will have to cut my top to fit back in the hole, and then I will have to cut it to where it works around my 4-inch dust line coming up in the back corner. Once I get it set in there, that should give me free rein. Slide right across the top table on the saw. We should have, with a little dust collection, hopefully a dust-free, convenient cutting station. I want the top of my saw, obviously, to be laying flush with this, but I'm not gonna get too finicky with it. I was gonna put adjustable T-slots in here to where I can move it up and tighten it down, but my countertop would have to move around it and I'd have to notch it. I don't want to mill back in the side of my cabinet, so you know, when you screw something up, it could move a little bit here and there. So I'm going to actually drop this down about 3/16 below where I actually need it to be, and then I will, once I get it in here, lay a level across it. I'll cut me a shim and bring everything back up flush. But I'm gonna set it at 4 inches, and we're gonna get us some mark, and we're gonna move on. Tell you what, if you've never used this stuff, it's basically just a super glue, but you got this activator, but it's 2P10. But in a case like this, where you want to stick it up there and hold it, and need it to hold pretty quick, it works like a charm. You can't tarry because it will set up quick. It's like having a third set of hands. Now, I'll screw a couple in from the outside, but then I'll take the drawer out. We'll come in and screw it from the back side. I don't think it'll fall. If anybody out there watching knows what I did wrong, put it down in the comments before I tell you, but I'll give you a little hint. I didn't take into account the thickness of my top. Let me redo this and I'll get back with you. Well, sometimes we get lucky when we screw up. My countertop will cover those holes, so no harm, no foul. Now this next one's a little more critical. I've got to cut the circle out for that pipe in this back corner. So let's try not to screw this one up. You'd think cutting a square top to go in this hole would be easy. Just measure it and cut a square and slide it down in there. But all holes are not created equally. So I've learned the hard way in the past. You cut a square, you'll put it in here, it'll be tight back here and loose over here. So the way I combat that is I will always find a common location that I can reference off of, and in this case the front of my cabinets. But I'll come over and find the center line of this gap, and then I will take a framing square and I will come in and reference the front. And what I will do is I'll measure from the center line over to that edge, center line over to that edge, and do the same in the front. And so if this thing is out of square, let's just say it's running that way, well then I'm referencing off that center line. So if it's an 1/8 wider this way, I'll be adding it to it where it needs it, and then hopefully it'll fit down in there and make it look like it's square. Now I left myself about a 1/16 of play on each side, that way I can get it down the hole, because it's going to be snug going in there, getting it around this front corner. Let's try not to screw it up with this circular saw. See if we can get it cut out. All right, I had to cut a little relief back here, so hopefully I can get that slide around that pipe. It's gonna be a snug fit. Let's see if we can get her to go. Overhang is too much. I knew it'd be close on me getting it to go in, so it wouldn't fit, so I've unscrewed this countertop. We'll slide it down. Should give us our clearance. But we can live with it. Well, all my gaps turned out pretty close. Hole worked out pretty good. I wish I hadn't had to cut that little corner out, but I'd have never got it around it. Let's screw it down. Set our saw in there, figure out how tall our shims need to be. We're about ready to saw something. All right, she fits in there. I've got to shim it up about 3/16, but for my dust collection, everything clears nicely. The one issue I have is when I bring it all the way around, I can get to 45, no problem. But if you needed to go to 50, which I can get there on this side, but when we bring it around, this saw will go up to 60 degrees. When I bring it to 60, I stop at 55. So it's hitting on me right here. So I needed a little more room. Now I could bring it all out and get it no problem, but I want it back here to where, you know, I'm not obstructed when I'm walking down through here. But I can't, there's just not many times that I cut at 60 degrees. So right here is as far as I'll be going typically, 45 to 45. and that'll suffice. But if I did need to go to 60 for some reason, all I'd have to do is unscrew it. I can slide it out and get to whatever I need. But I'm gonna do a measurement here in case you're putting one of these in, how much actual area you would need to be able to clear. I'll measure that and I'll get back with you. So if you want to go full capacity, that'll go to about 53 degrees all the way over to 60. You would need 34 5/8 to clear it. That way the handle clears on both sides. But I'm gonna scoot it back, keep it out of the way. And like I say, if I need to take it over here to 60 degrees, I'll scoot it out. But I want it back deep as I can get it, because when I scoot it out here, I can only catch about 7.5 inches. But if I move it back, I can catch almost 11 inches. I cut some shims on the table saw. These were a little too thin. Made another batch. Let's see how we did. I think it'll work. Well, there's always something that won't go as planned, but I placed my outlet back here behind where the saw was going to go, and not thinking really about the motor height and the travel. But when I turn it on a miter, if you notice, I'm hitting my cord, then, which, you know, I'll have a dust line hooked onto this, but even with it on there, when I turn it, you know, it's trying to pull my plug out. So I think what I'm going to do, don't want to really drill another hole in this, but I'm going to take and drill a hole back here so my power cord can go down through it. And then I'm going to add an outlet off of that circuit down here. We'll let it loop down, that way it can pull whichever way it needs to. And I may even get one of those, like your hose wands on your kitchen faucet, put a little weight on it, that way it'll pull it up and down once it comes back around to where it gets, you know, would have some slack, that way it doesn't get tangled in here. I don't know, we'll see how that works. But I'm gonna tie into this circuit, put an outlet down here, drill a hole there, and that should have it pretty well set up. I really don't want to do this. Most people will probably know this, but when you're drilling with these hole saws, when your pilot bit goes through the bottom, just go to the bottom side and drill back up. That way it doesn't blow it out on the bottom side, because sometimes when they push through, it'll splinter. But if you'll go to the back side and finish your cut, leaves a pretty neat hole. All right, I've got my hose wire through there. We'll get it plugged up, but I think that's going to work. We're in business. Well, I think that'll wrap this one up on setting the saw up. I'm pleased with that. I think it'll be pretty handy to have it stationary, to have it to where I can use it, you know, across the tabletop, and, you know, if I need to cut something, I'll be able to do it. But next up, we're going to put a dust system outside. I'll show you how I did that. I did pre-wire it in here, or we'll be able to run straight in to the saw. But the next time I'll show you how I hook that up outside, and then we're going to do a little dust test with using just the dust bag that this Boss saw comes with, and then we're going to use the factory dust system And then we'll hook up this Shop Nation dust collector to it. We'll see which one does the best. But if you watch this one, I appreciate it. And hey, we'll catch you on the next one.